Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's going to be another one of these videos. Someone brought this to my attention that Jeff Seid was explaining why he's natural, and he made a number of statements and talking about, well, you shouldn't need to use drugs to look like us, to look like physique competitors at the pro level in the IFBB where unlimited drugs are allowed. There's no testing of any type, and even though we know drug testing doesn't work, when there isn't any, it unlimits what you can use. You can use anything that you want. At least with drug testing, people have to be a little more careful and may not be able to use everything they want, just some of what they want, and still pass the test with a 100% chance. So he would have us believe that just hard work and knowledge is what gets guys like him where they are, even though he has almost no knowledge of nutrition. In fact, his nutrition knowledge is so horrifically bad that I would imagine 90% of fitness YouTubers know more about him than nutrition, such as when he said in a video that eggs have 4 grams of carbohydrates in them. Really, they have 0 carbs, Jeff. Although he did correct it later when someone brought that to his attention. He recommended dieting on 30 grams of fat at 1,800 calories, yet he doesn't complain about erectile dysfunction and everything else, which again, anyone as a male who's active, his body weight, who's not on exogenous hormones will generally be suffering from loss of sex drive, hormonal issues, and inability to maintain an erection, all of that stuff. Yet, he never complains about these issues in his contest prep. Oh, and the technique he uses in a lot of his major exercises, a novice who's been working out for 3 months and who's read Starting Strength could point out the problems and the risk injury and the lack of muscle activation that he's getting in the way that he performs quite a few of his exercises, ranging from all of his presses for his chest to his deadlifts. But no, it's just his hard work and superior knowledge, not genetics and drugs. Now, that being said, the thing that he said that bothers me the most, I don't have a problem with him doing his thing. That's his marketing, that's his hustle. I respect the hustle. However, what really bothers me is the line that fake natties drop all the time, and that's the shit about, oh, the only reason to use steroids is if you want to look like Phil Heath or Kai Green or Ronnie Coleman. Let's get with the real world. Anyone who knows anything about bodybuilding and sports and drugs and what people use knows that, first of all, even if they spent 50 grand a year, the average person doesn't have the genetics to get as big or to look like those guys do. No matter how many drugs they put into their body, no matter how hard they train, there's a genetic component and a genetic response to the drugs. So 90%, maybe 95% of guys out there who already use steroids will never look like those guys, even if they used unlimited amounts of drugs. So that's a big red flag right there that guys drop in order to mask their own lesser drug use. And maybe not having the genetics to get as big as those guys. When they do use drugs, they always pull that bullshit line of, the only reason to use drugs is to look like them. Then on top of it, they try to mask the fact that these guys are on insane amounts of drugs that the average person simply can't afford. They don't have the disposable income for that. I know plenty of guys who are trying to earn their pro card to spend anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per month on their drug bill alone. Let's not even get into their food bill, their training, coaching, any of that. Just their drugs, $500 to $1,000 a month. Some pros out there using 20 to 30 grand a year worth of drugs. So to imply that the average person should only be using drugs to look like that when the drug bill is astronomical to be there, again, kind of downplays the fact of the genetics and how much drugs these guys actually use at that level. When the reality is, studies on it have shown that generally when you're under about 10% body fat or less, the fat-free mass index limit for a natural with really, really good genetics is about 25, and that the majority and the average admitted chronic steroid user, when they've studied them, has a fat-free mass index of down around 24. So there's a lot of guys out there walking around who are 185 pounds who've been using steroids for years, self-admittedly, who actually train pretty decently. So this whole idea that, guys should only be using steroids and will only use steroids to look like that, again, this is a complete deflection in using the most extreme genetic and high-dose examples that exist for people to cover their own more conservative use who have goals that don't require them to be as big. And it's a complete bullshit line, and every time someone utters something like that who's a competitor, they need to be called out on that bullshit, because that is simply spreading misinformation intentionally for the purpose of masking what they do so that they can stay out of more legal trouble, get in better with their sponsors, all of that. Because at the end of the day, the thing to remember with all these guys, they're being paid to say they get there by using all of these muscle building supplements. And so I'm not saying supplements don't work and don't have their role, but they're not going to get you those kind of results. They're not going to get you drug-like results. And so they're paid to say that they're natural. And it's just offensive when they use such an obvious facade as using the line about, oh, looking like a top IFBB pro is the reason. The only real reason guys would use drugs is if that's obtainable at all for guys who are using drugs for the most part. All right, guys, but my rant is over. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.